Welcome back to another episode of Intuition Made Us Do It. I'm here with Jessica, my co host, and today we're going to talk about what to do when you're feeling stuck, when things just feel like they aren't working and aren't moving forward in the way that you want them to. And it feels like everywhere you turn, it's a dead end, dead end, dead end. What do you think is actually happening when someone feels stuck like that?
It's frustration. You wanna go in a forward motion, but something is not letting you. There's an obstacle in front of you, whether that obstacle is another person or a process or it's just not time or whatever the case may be for that scenario. And when the emotion of frustration comes in, depending on who you are, some people crumble into that emotion. Some people fall apart. Some people power through it. They just try to break through a wall. I was probably a little bit more in the latter camp. I had an inner drill sergeant in my head for a very, very long time. She's like, don't be a wuss. Just keep going. And instead of being frustrated with the obstacle outside of me, I became frustrated with me, which started a whole thing. So to bring that back to the question, like what's going on with people, there's a lot of things. The emotional frustration, this is not working the way that I expected it to. And then from there, the mind tends to shut down. And then also that person's inner spirit might shut down a little bit too, depending on if they're beating themselves up inside, which I think we can all empathize with to some degree. What happens for you when you feel stuck?
I feel like I try to figure it out and find the solution to the problem through my mind, usually, which is slightly exhausting.
It's so optimistic though. It's like the
It's a
solution's
bit
out there.
controlling, though, wouldn't you say? Let me figure it out. I will change this.
I mean, maybe. I don't know. I'm gonna look at things with big, giant rose-colored glasses, but I see the optimism in there for sure. Like, there is a solution. I'm gonna find it.
Yeah, yeah. And so
Until
until I don't find the solution.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so hard. And then what happens after that? Do you feel disillusioned, despair, confused? What happens emotionally for you?
I usually feel a bit of despair and hopelessness.
Mhm. Dang. Yep.
And I know I'm not alone. I talk to a lot of my clients and a lot of friends who will go on this constant loop. And so we've talked about how we like to solve the greatest mysteries of the world. And so I thought today we could kind of go at this one and see what oh, here I am doing it again. I'm like, let's find a solution. But let's find a solution to this age-old question. What
You
do you
guys
do when you're feeling stuck?
can you guys see why I love partnering with her? There's always a solution.
I know, we're gonna find it.
Unraveling the mysteries of the universe. I think so. Man, I have so much empathy for the feeling of feeling stuck. Have you ever walked into a room full of frustrated people? I have.
Mhm, mhm.
Like a room full of super smart people all working together to figure out some problem, usually at a company or a job. Like I think of a room full of engineers. God bless the
Mhm.
engineers. I love your brains so much. But
Yeah.
there's this intensity that comes
Mhm,
with trying to figure something out.
mhm,
There's a few different ways to go about it, but from that mindset, when you're trying and you're ruminating, and the problem has to be, sorry, the solution has to be out there. I just got to find it, find it, find it, find it. And the brain gets in kind of a loop with that thought. And depending on the person, turns into varying levels of intensity. And I've
mhm,
met a lot of people that have that intensity just running 24/7 on them.
mhm,
Like you meet them and you're like, "How are you?" And they're like, "Fine." And it's such short, curt answers. You're not really getting into the
mhm,
relational piece with them. You can tell that their cognition is sort of approaching here, like you and your conversations here, and then there's this iceberg of stuff
mhm,
that they're working on back here. To me, it just seems like you get less of the person when somebody's feeling stuck or frustrated because all this cognitive bandwidth is being occupied trying to figure something out.
The thing I believe that I would imagine keeps someone stuck is trying to find that linear pathway forward and the logical solution and answer. Sometimes the answer or the pathway through isn't necessarily logical. Sometimes it's a whisper from your intuition that says go left when everything you've been working for is to go right.
First half of my career, it would have been like, of course, there's a linear process. And then coming in as an entrepreneur, I'm like, throw spaghetti at the wall, something will happen.
Hmm.
Neither one of those being perfectly complete.
Hmm. So it sounds like the answer is intuition.
It's always going to be intuition here.
Simple and
Just
show.
roll credits. Intuition is higher order intelligence. It's going to take your intelligence as it is now, and it's going to fine tune it by giving you nudges outside your comfort zone to evolve and develop you and bring you to that next level, whatever that next level is. Where most people are going to stop is at the frustration level. And they're going to stay with whatever their default brain likes to do, power through linearly or just keep throwing spaghetti at the wall, neither of which is very strategic. So I guess I'm curious, brain, which brain do you usually operate from? It's kind of a trick question because I know you so well.
Well, I know you'd probably say right brain, however, when no, okay.
I know
I
it's
mean,
a trick question. Like I've seen you
you
do both.
you do know me well. When things aren't working, I tap into my left brain. I try to process the crap out of it. Why isn't this working? What's the process? What's the system? Let's figure this out. What I've found being an entrepreneur is it's just not linear and input doesn't equal output. And sometimes I wish it would because I'll do the input to get the output.
Like, I'm never gonna figure it out. I'm a little bit prone to melancholy sometimes, and so
Yeah,
sadness comes through.
hopelessness. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And so for anybody listening that feels stuck right now, like it's not comfortable to be in that space. And I hope that by the end of this podcast, you will have gotten a little bit of inspiration on why the frustration piece doesn't have to be the end of the story.
Mhm,
That with just a little bit more of an understanding of the emotional intelligence behind these feelings, that can be the doorway to unstuck oneself.
mhm,
And one of the theories on emotional intelligence that we have here at Intuition Mindset is that all emotions exist on a spectrum. And on one end of the spectrum, it's super heavy and chaotic, and this emotion feels like it's gonna eat me. And it's just intense. And then on the other end of that spectrum, there's a maturity of the emotion and an intuitive message. So every emotion has this gorgeous intuitive message if we're willing to tap into it. So you might be asking, like, well, what the heck use is frustration? Because you know how it feels. It's constricting, it's heavy, brain is just not working how it should. You might get angry, try and power through. You might consult to some very negative self talk. Just it's frustration. How can there be an intuitive message in that?
yeah, and yet there is.
Yeah. Have you ever gotten a sense of that spectrum of emotions? Have you ever seen an emotion, maybe frustration for you, kind of take its route through some intensity to something a little less annoying?
It's called a wave of emotion because I'm actually seeing it visually like a wave. It, like, comes like this tidal wave of, "Oh my god, I'm gonna die," and then it settles, and it's calm, and it's peaceful, and it's like, "Oh, there's the intuitive message."
Have you always had that intuitive clarity on emotions?
No, no, not at all. In fact, I would say it felt more like the peak of a tidal wave a lot of times, and there wasn't necessarily a linear process to it, but as we're talking, emotional intelligence almost does give a bit more of a structure into that process of these big emotions, would you say?
Oh, yeah. But frustration's an interesting emotion because anger tends to, which is the found frustration belongs to the anger family. Anger tends to project itself outward. So angry. I'm angry at that obstacle. It's projecting it outward towards the thing. Frustration loops anger back around and it loops it back into you. Frustration is anger turned inward. So when you have the most chaotic end of frustration and it's just like churning and bubbling and screw everything and I'm not effective in what I'm doing and I'm just going to quit and all of the thoughts that get paired on with these giant emotions. Once the emotion sort of does that tidal wave peak, by the way, just as an aside, I really recommend don't make any decisions here. It's very tempting to make decisions at that height of an emotional wave like, that's it, I quit. I'm never going to be an entrepreneur. I'm selling it all tomorrow. I'm going to go work at the corner cafe instead of taking on all of this pressure. And every entrepreneur's had that moment. I guarantee it.
Mhm.
In any case, on the other side of that peak is the intuitive message once the emotion has mostly run its course through the system. It's almost to the point where you don't sense the frustration is even in your nervous system anymore. It's you may have forgotten about the problem. You may have just said, "Oh, the hell that with that obstacle." And that's where the intuitive message comes in and says, boundaries needed. That frustration, that obstacle, that anger that you're feeling about this, there's actually a boundary that's needed here. You're frustrated with yourself. The way you're approaching this problem isn't working for you. You need a boundary here. So that's kind of interesting since we're talking about frustration as anger turned inward towards ourselves. There's something wrong with me fundamentally why I can't move that obstacle. And the intuitive message is you need a boundary.
I'm curious if you have an example. Like someone's feeling stuck and they're feeling frustrated and they ride the wave and then they get to that clarity. Like what's an example of what that type of boundary would be?
The boundary is going to be one that encourages someone to take a new approach. They're almost giving too much of themselves to this problem. You ever notice that when somebody's super frustrated and they're just continuing to throw themselves at the problem, throw their time, throw their mind, throw their thoughts, their entire cognitive range is being soaked up by this problem. All of it's being saturated by one topic. And that's fascinating when your mind is trying to work through a problem sort of unhealthily. Your mind considers that problem as a threat. It says there's danger in that obstacle ahead. And if I don't push through that obstacle, I'm at risk. For any entrepreneur, that totally checks out. Like, if I don't figure out how to clear $10,000 in the next 2 weeks or whatever, my business is going to be in trouble. So obviously, the entire cognitive range just narrows and focuses only on that project or only on that problem. So you're driving at it and driving at it. The problem's not budging. Frustration gets kicked back inwards. And the intuitive side of that emotion says, you need a boundary here. You're throwing too much of your resources at this one problem. The boundary would encourage you to take a step back because continuing to lob yourself at the problem, it's like bang head against wall here repeatedly. Obviously, a boundary would be needed for that because at some point you're going to create more and more frustration. Your body knows that's not good for you. More and more frustration does not equal more and more progress. And for
Mhm.
anybody who's going to argue with us, because they're gonna say, well, I just pushed through all of my frustration and eventually I broke through. And I'm like, of course you broke through. You are always going to break through because you're awesome, magical, and super intelligent. But you had two choices on how to get there. You chose the bang head through wall, eventually brick wall breaks down. The intuitive way says boundaries needed. Take a step back,
Mhm.
release some of these cognitive processes that are just spinning wildly out of control. Your computing power is greatly diminished as a result of this, and your mind's about to go on overdrive. Anybody who's worked a long time in a job on overdrive knows what those consequences are over time. Your relationships suffer, your health suffers, your focus goes out the window. You can only focus on 8-second videos on a scroll on your phone because all these cognitive resources have been depleted. So, frustration carried in the body for too long, feeling stuck for too long, that's not good. That's got some
Mhm.
problems with it.
Mhm. How do you see that um shortcutting or helping to reduce the angst that so many people experience? What would you say emotional intelligence role in that is?
Yeah, the first role of emotional intelligence is to realize that you are an emotional being. You have emotions. They are very much a part of your life. And if anybody's like, "Ah, I'm not very emotional," I love I love it when people say that. It's like your emotions are underpinning your entire experience. If you didn't have emotions, your experience of life would be very gray. Like you wouldn't have a lot of color to life. So emotional intelligence in its first job, it says you have emotions, they are affecting you, and they are affecting your brain and how you think. And learn what they're trying to tell you.
Mhm,
Understand your emotions, then you get to understand the emotions of other people. And then from there, you get to work with your emotions as a creative fuel and something to fuel up your passions rather than something to be avoided, suppressed, or ignored like most people do with their emotions. I
mhm.
think it's such an interesting thing when people don't realize that frustration's an emotion. Like, I think I had that disconnect for a long time. I was never told, "Hey, so you seem pretty frustrated right now." My response would be like, "No, I'm not," all intense, because I wouldn't connect the dots that I was having an anger inward experience. I was just trying to figure out a problem.
Mhm.
Whole life looked like figuring out problems. Have you ever had I mean, you're so right-brained. You when I met you, I'm like, "Man, she speaks emotions really well." You were born with emotional intelligence, weren't you?
I definitely got some great experiences with emotions, growing up, and I'm fortunate enough that I was taught that expressing emotions was okay,
Mm,
and
yeah.
that's great to remove some of the, outward shame that a lot of people
Well,
experience.
definitely.
However, I did create internal stuff around it, and I don't think I had the knowledge of what each emotion was telling me. I knew that I was feeling the emotion, and yet there's this added layer that we like to go into where it's the gateway, these emotions towards your intuition, towards your higher order intelligence that is sending signals. And I think that's the piece that is so fascinating because people have such a range of access to their emotions and most people know that, but I don't know if most people know the nuance of what each emotion is communicating and how to really navigate the feeling it and then receiving that intuitive clarity in a way that helps you feel less stuck and less overtaken by the emotion. It removes the drama, even though it's like emotions, can be dramatic, and emotional intelligence removes the drama from it.
Yeah, it's well said. And to be very clear, emotions, to repeat what Hannah just said, emotions are absolutely the gateway to your intuition. We'll take it a step further and say you cannot get to your intuition without emotional intelligence. It's actually impossible. In order to understand higher order intelligence, the complete intelligence of your brain, you have to understand all aspects of your mind and how it operates. To say that only the left brain does analytical and mathematical thinking and then the right brain only does emotions. That's actually not true. The general sense is that both sides of your brain are contributing to emotional intelligence. And once your emotions are understood, you get this sort of baseline level of how your body is trying to talk to you. Because remember, intuition is the inner mentor. It's the inner wisdom coming from you. So, in order to understand the information inside yourself, emotions are going to be a huge part of your internal experience. So, we can't skip to the end and say, "Oh, I'm just going to be the super intuitive person," without having integrated the language of emotions, the language of feeling, and all that the subtleties happen therein because intuition is going to utilize your left brain, your right brain, your subconscious mind, and your nervous system. And emotions are just running throughout each and every one of those systems.
Mm. Wow. And how would you say that emotional intelligence impacts leadership and decision making?
Well, think about the process when somebody's unaware. and they're frustrated and they're trying to power through an obstacle to get to the solution. That's like the name of the game with work. You are here, you need to get to here. A leader's responsible for bringing not only a solution to that problem, but they're bringing an entire team of people to work through that problem as well. Let's say that that leader has no idea that they're frustrated. Let's say the leader has no idea that they're powering through a very narrow focus. And the team members would come up and be like, hey, so we have some ideas that are outside of this narrow focus. Can we talk about it? And the non emotionally intelligent leader is going to be like, nope, this is the only way to get through to that obstacle. The thing about frustration and feeling stuck is that it shuts down creative thinking almost entirely. And when you feel stuck and you feel frustrated, your brain goes into basically have like two choices. It's very black and white. It's very this or that. It's very narrow. So a frustrated leader is going to say like, we have option A and we have option B. And the rest of the team's like, but what about options C through F? Contrast that with an emotionally intelligent leader who says, oh, I realize I'm frustrated right now. I realize that my thinking might be super binary and I'm not perceiving many options. I'm not creative right now. I'm just trying to power through. They would welcome more creative solutions to the entire view of things.
Mhm. More open and receptive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's a great reminder here that if you are feeling stuck, your brain has limited your cognitive focus and limited your attention to black and white thinking. You're probably only going to perceive one or two options to get through the problem. And when I said that big wave of frustration for me, it's like, power through, this works or I quit. That's binary thinking.
Mhm.
Once the emotion has the time to pass through, then it's many more options.
Mhm. One
But
of my favorite practices when something is feeling impossible is playing with the question, "It would be impossible unless," and then it just opens your brain to all of this thinking that is not just option A or B. It's like, "Oh, it'd be impossible unless I met the person tomorrow who's gonna, want to bring their team whatever, whatever."
that's cool. That's a neat tool.
If someone's listening to this and they're like, "Yeah, I get frustrated all the time. I feel stuck all the time. I find it hard to access relaxation sometimes." And they're wanting to shift and they're hearing the benefits to being more open and to being more receptive and to not having it be so black or white. What tips would you give that person who's like, "Yeah, okay, I kind of want to up level my emotional intelligence?"
The first level of all emotional intelligence is just admitting to oneself, I might be having an emotional experience here. And for those who've checked that box, then it's, well, what the hell do I do with this giant emotion? But truly, let's spend a few moments here on the first step. I might
I'm
be.
picturing, like, an emotional support group in a circle. "I'm having an emotional experience." Like,
And
yeah.
to recognize that not only is that okay, not only is that something that's part of being human, but just to normalize and destigmatize emotions to say, like, your emotions are where your genius is going to come from. Your emotions is where creativity comes from, where intuition comes from, and the feeling of being alive, like the experience of being human, is all filtered through emotions. That's why I'm so not worried about AI. It can mimic emotions, but listen, it's not ever going to have that embodied experience of emotions. So to say, like, I might be having an emotional experience, perfect. That awareness is everything. Try to extend it a little bit further beyond that and say, well, what emotion am I having? Am I angry? Am I frustrated? Am I sad, disgusted, confused? When somebody's stuck, it might be all of those things. Grief is a big emotion in feeling stuck. It's very painful. It's very confusing when somebody's going through it. But at the same time, grief contains frustration, it contains sadness, deep sadness for what could be, and it contains an awareness of like, wow, this really matters to you. So grief is important. If anybody's feeling stuck, frustrated, and they're sort of grieving something that they have no idea, there's no words for it, understand these complexities of these emotions are all working through your system to bring you to a new level of your own genius once these emotions have had a time to work through. So, second piece of advice is let these big emotions do their thing. We're not designed to think about emotions, we're designed to feel them. I
Mhm.
mean, have you ever noticed, maybe for yourself or somebody that you know, who is quick to intellectualize their emotions and sort of
Oh,
explain?
yeah.
What is that? What do you sense in people like that?
It's a form of bypassing it a little bit. And what I heard from what you said were 3 main things for people. Number 1, awareness. Number 2, identify. And number 3, feel. And none of that is trying to analyze, like, the root cause of it at all. It's just being aware, noticing what you're feeling, and giving yourself a second to feel it. And then I imagine what comes after that, without trying so hard, is the intuitive intelligence behind it.
Well said and well synthesized too in terms of those steps. Emotional intelligence is daunting at first because it comes with this, what do you mean I got to feel grief?
Mhm.
What do you mean I got to feel frustration? Lean into it. Like that's not an easy ask to do, especially if somebody's new to opening the door to an emotional experience. That's why it's nice to have an awareness of what big emotions are trying to say. And in this case, hey, if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling the emotion of frustration, a boundary is needed here. Maybe you continue to throw yourself at the wall and that's not needed right now. Take a few steps back. Set a boundary. Don't think about this problem 24/7. Set a mental boundary. What if you get around someone who's frustrating you? Set a boundary. I'm only going to hang out with this person for 20 minutes. After that, I just start to feel a little bit too frustrated to deal.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and then in terms of setting boundaries with your own spirit, like I'm only going to think about this problem for the next 10 minutes and then I'm going to put it down. So in all of that, um, if someone's approaching their emotional intelligence for the first time, be very patient with the process and your courageousness to feel it. Like we are cheering you on from the front and the back of the room. Like that is such a brave thing to do. And there's many modalities that help people step into feeling more.
One of the reasons I think emotional intelligence is a worthy pursuit is it removes some of the mystery and some of the um, relentless spiral that these emotions can bring for people, and it does kind of give answers. And I feel like as humans, we want answers to things. We want things to make sense. And if you're in that heightened wave of emotion and you're like, why is this happening? All of that stuff. Instead, you kind of have this grounding knowing that this is happening for you. It's giving you guidance. It's showing you what you need to do next, what direction to go next, and it's helping you instead of feeling like a victim to the emotion, and so it really is a worthwhile pursuit from my perspective.
Yeah, well said. Worthwhile and the not becoming victim to circumstance.
Absolutely.
'Cause
Yeah.
feeling stuck, I just feels like it's gonna be forever. And those emotions, when they're at their most chaotic, they're like, "This is gonna be forever."
Right, 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 exactly, and you can practice this right now, like, take, you know, poll of your life and see. You can see where things felt like the end of the world, and then, spoiler, they weren't,
Mm.
and there's so many different tools like this that you can practice with, and we'll continue to share more, and if anyone is intrigued by this concept and they want to up-level their emotional intelligence, we have some free resources and workshops online at intuitionmindset.com. Also, for someone who feels really drawn to this topic and wants to gain more tangible, practical tools and science behind the nuance of it all, both for themselves and for your clients. We have an emotional intelligence course coming out, a group live program in June of 2026 that will be available. And information and details to sign up for that will be on intuitionmindset.com. And yeah.
Perfect. And we'll include all of that information in the links in the comments too. So thanks for hanging out with us today on another installment of Intuition Made Us Do It. You can ask us how we got here. We had to. Our intuition said that this would be so much fun. And boy, are we glad that we followed that instinct to dive in.
Until next time.